These shootings were planned long before they took place. Nobody knows this. Nobody knows the reason but me and perhaps one day, you. Today we're talking about the false confession that David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, gave while in prison at Attica. Now, you may be familiar with the son of Sam case. He was the one who terrorized New York from July 76 until August when he was arrested in 1977. He killed 6 women and wounded 11 other people, including 1 male. Now, you remember son Sam because he claimed that a dog told him to kill. In reality, he was demonically possessed. But during his time in prison, he changed his story because of a man named Dr. Abrahamson, who was a Freudian psychologist, i.e. there's no spiritual world, you have nightmares and dreams about your subconscious and touch children and all that, right? So this guy didn't really like the narrative of demonic possession or spiritual warfare. So David changed that and said, well, actually I did it. I knew it. I know why. Here's the story. So I want to read you a letter that David wrote to Dr. Abrahamson May 16th, 1979. And he says, I've done quite a bit of self-analysis and I am now mentally aware as to the reasons why I committed most of those crimes. I've known the true motives for quite some time, but I deliberately kept them below the surface because of my fear in hurting certain persons. In other words, I did know why I pulled the trigger. I did know why I deliberately killed. I knew who the person was whom I wanted to hurt, on whom I wanted revenge. These shootings were planned long before they took place. Nobody knows this. Nobody knows the reason but me, and perhaps one day you. And he goes on to talk about a book deal, or not book deal, but helping out every single with his book. But the police investigating David, the district attorney, the FBI, they're like, dude, stop it. We're fed up of you trying to cop out saying, oh, I was demonically possessed. A dog told me to kill. Now, it turns out later he talked about the dog being a hoax. The dog didn't tell him to kill, but he was demonically possessed. He had joined a cult when he got back from the army called the Children. It was in Ontemeyer Park in New York, and they did a lot of sacrifices. They did a lot of chanting, a lot of things involving younger adults, not even adults, you know what I mean. So they did some very sick things. Right, I'm not saying David did any of those specifically, those acts, but he was involved in a group that did those acts. But it didn't fit the narrative of the press, of the law enforcement, so he basically changed his story. He said, I was conscious the whole time. No demonic possession, no dog, nothing, it was all fake. But the reason he did this was to make them happy. So then after years of saying this, he got fed up of it, and he said, nope, I'm tired of lying. I'm not going to change my story. I was demonically possessed. The devil had a hold of me. And he talked about this in an interview with Michael Francesi, Michael Caparelli. They did an interview for his book, Monster Mirror. He also said, at the letters, he said, I was lying. I was demonically possessed. Right? And in a different letter, David says to Dr. Epperson, he says, value. You mean human life has values? I didn't know that. If I never valued or appreciated my life, then how could I someone else's? Feeling closeness with someone is impossible when there is a block that prohibits me from feeling anything with anybody. I want to feel, but I can't. So, David obviously has a hate for people when he was son of Sam, right? And I know people don't always believe in demonic warfare, that angels or demons are around us, but I do believe in it. I believe in God Almighty. I believe in the power of the cross, okay? Now, whether David was fully possessed or partially aware, I'm not sure. But I know when demonic possession takes a hold of somebody, it completely takes a hold of them, right? In the story of the Bible, when the demons were in the man, they were on the cliff, and there was a shepherd and some pigs nearby. The demons, when Jesus cast them out of the man, they said, please, let us go into the swine and ran off the cliff. So Jesus gave permission, and a whole herd of swine, basically, I think it was like 50 to 100, it was a large number. They all went off the cliff, and everybody was scared. Demons have great power, right? When Ted Bundy talked about his murders, his face, this is not anecdotal. This is what the agent said interviewing him, right? That his life would disappear. He would have just dark black eyes. That he would become cold and like a different personality. So that took over David and took away his love for humanity, his kindness, his peace, right? Because at this point he'd been constantly rejected. He'd been suicidal. He really hated people. He was constantly looking for purpose, for hope, for love, and nobody gave it. He was adopted out of a bastard marriage, right? His birth father didn't want him because he was married to someone else. His mother was basically, according to what David said in future letters, she stepped around. She would go from one man, live with him. He would pay for everything, and then she moved to the next guy, and so on. Right? So David did have a lot of anger issues. He had a lot of familial issues, but I think that was what opened him up to demonic possession. And he talks about this too when he was a kid, that he was drawn to darkness. He wanted to jump off a bridge. He wanted to jump off his 6-story apartment building. He was very vulnerable to darkness, and that's not something a regular healthy kid does. Nor does a normal healthy human being commit those murders. Like, you don't just walk up to a car and go bang, bang, bang. That was demonic possession. It just didn't fit the narrative of the police, the FBI, and New York City. They wanted justice. They wanted him to hang. So that is why David lied in that one period, because he won't make me happy. And he's like, nope, not true. So that is it for today. Interesting letter from David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. Make sure you guys are watching, staying tuned for all the next videos, because I'm going to go through all these hundreds of letters, break it all down so you guys get the juicy stuff and not have to go through all the long paper trail. Break it down, keep you guys informed, tell you about the books I'm reading, the psychology behind killers and their families, their history, their background, all that. So make sure you're staying tuned. Make sure you stay true to crime, stay true to God. God bless you guys. I'll see you next video.